Vous êtes sur Africa 24, bienvenue dans votre nouveau numéro de décryptage. Nous sommes avec Eiman Kheir et les chargés de la diaspora au sein de l'Union africaine. Ensemble, on va parler de la contribution de la diaspora africaine dans le développement du continent. Elle nous dévoilera également ce que fait l'Union africaine pour engager de plus en plus les membres de la diaspora africaine à revenir faire affaire en Afrique. Pouvez-vous nous en dire plus sur votre organisation?
SIDO was created when the Organization of the African Unity transformed into the African Union. In this transformation, the African Union decided that it is no longer a union of just member states, but it is a people-centered organization. So the directorate I work in focuses on engaging all citizens of Africa, people living inside the continent, people living outside the continent. We represent anything from the private sector, the trade union, faith-based organizations, civil society organizations, businessmen, individuals, etc.
Pensez-vous que la société civile africaine joue un rôle dans la démocratisation du continent?
Of course. All non-state actors are important for democracy. They're the ones who can be, they're partners in this process of democracy. They're the ones who help you with the planning, they help you with implementation, and they help you with monitoring. Historically, I think civil society or non-state actors were given a specific role. That specific role was basically to monitor. That's why they were called watchdogs. So they used to tell the government and people when something was wrong. But with the African Union, they don't want their role to be diminished just to the aspect of monitoring, but they want them to be partners in the process.
Dites-nous, comment les diasporas africaines peuvent-elles contribuer au développement du continent?
You know, every time I'm asked this question, I feel like it's important to highlight how they are currently supporting the development of the continent. So even before, when we speak about what was happening in the continent long time ago, the diaspora were the ones who amplified the voices of what's happening in their countries. And that led to independence, that led to fighting apartheid. But now the diaspora are engaging in development in so many ways. One of the easiest and the most spoken about ways is remittance. When somebody goes abroad and sends money to their home, it is not that they're supporting their families, they are the lifeline of their families. Without them, people can't go get an education, can't go to hospitals, can't live, have their basic needs. So the diaspora so far are the lifelines of many of the people back in Africa, but they also support in other ways. They support in social matters, knowledge transfer, for example, economic matters by creating new businesses in the continent or the countries of origin. Politically as well, like I said, they amplified the voices of what is happening in their countries. They make sure that with the dual nationality that they sometimes hold, that they speak about their countries and and not just the negative things, but speak about a lot of the positive things that their countries have. They take the culture outside. Before, it was always known that wearing African clothes was odd, or listening to African music, but now it's become a hip thing outside. So I think the diaspora have played an essential part in this.
Parlez-nous des communautés internationales d'origine africaine qui comptent des membres de la diaspora.
Let me start by saying that, who are the diaspora, right? For the African Union, when they wanted to say we want to engage the diaspora, they said, let's identify who this diaspora are. So a definition that was adopted by the African Union, and it's a bit lengthy, but it's an important definition. It says that the diaspora are people of African origin who live outside the continent and who, irrespective of their current citizenship or nationality, are willing to contribute to the development of the continent and the building of the African Union. The most important aspect here is that people of African origin. So they speak of anybody who is African and who still wants to be related to Africa. So this includes what we call the people of African descent, people who were taken forcibly from the continent many decades or ago, and until now have this affinity to Africa and want to be African. And it was recognized also that these people of African descent, whether we speak about people who live in the Caribbean or in the Americas, they still have their basic rights not met. They still have wages that they're given, which are less than the wages of others in their countries that they live in, where they hold the same nationality. So it was a decade that was supported by all member states, not just African, but globally at the United Nations. And it was declared, a decade was declared from 2015 to 2024 called the Decade of People of African Descent. This decade has three main pillars. recognition, justice, development. How are we engaged with this as the African Union? So basically in 2017, the African Union, what we created is we invited the diasporas, people of African descent as well, from the Caribbean and the Americas, people of African descent who live on the continent, because we still have those. We have those who belong to the Rastafarian community. We have African Americans who have come, resided on this continent, notably in Ghana, you would see them. And we had the different member states would come, we brought them together, and we brought other civil society organizations. The aim was to speak about recognition. Why are these people here? What are their issues? Because you always see that this issue of people of African descent has been discussed and debated globally with the elders. But when you speak to people currently in Africa, most of them are not aware about the issue. So it's important that we have this dialogue initiated again, ignited with the youth as well, and with the different levels of the government and the civil society and people of African descent, and speak about what are their new needs. What do we need to recognize? What do we need to do? We did this in 2017 and in 2018. And last year we had a very big conference alongside the UN. This decade sits with the UN Office of High Commissioner of Human Rights, because it is a human rights matter. We had a joint event that took place in Dakar, Senegal, and out of that came a declaration. And I think that's a timely time. 2020 is the mid-year, where they will present their mid-year report of what we've done globally regarding people of African descent. And I would say that there are so many things that have been done. Ethiopia has granted what you call sort of the a residency, a permanent residency for the Rastafarian community who are here. In Tunisia, they recognize people of African descent, and they passed laws against any sort of discrimination against race. Ghana, of course, had the year of return. We've all heard about it. They've granted citizenship to so many people of African descent. Kenya as well. One of the things they did is that they spoke about the 400 years since the transatlantic slave trade, and them and Ghana started having relationship with the Caribbean community.
Quels ont été les acquis de votre organisation jusqu'à cette date?
So far, the achievement is that more and more people are recognizing what this matter is. Last year as well, in that forum, we insisted on bringing media, but bringing young media, so the young bloggers, the young people who have podcasts, and we wanted them to take this aspect from their own perspective and start speaking about it. And we see much more engagement about this. So I think maybe what we can say since last year is that there's more recognition of what is happening, more recognition of why this decade exists, and hopefully in the next 5 years, what we'll speak about is that what is the responsibility of every single element, civil society and the governments, and even organizations such as the African Union, and what do we want to do.
Quels sont vos projets dans le futur?
Well, there's so many. I think one of the things we're trying to do, again, there is specific focuses. So when we speak about businesses, we always invite the diaspora to come and invest in the country. But somehow we do not make it easy for them to invest. They don't know where's the information. They don't know what are the rules of the country. If you're a businessman, you know that you cannot spend 1 month in a country just to get the permit that allows you to open a business. It needs to be faster. So what we are doing with the government is that we're putting a database, and it's going to be a one-stop shop, which is on a website or a platform where they can access this information. At the same time, we as the African Union, our job is to pass policies or to support policies. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of understand what are the challenges of opening a business, especially for the diaspora. Most of these challenges are challenges that are the fact that they don't know the country very well. Doing business in Africa is not like doing business anywhere in the world. The need of mentors, the need of understanding financial institutions, and the need of finding funds. Not funds to start small businesses, but funds to upscale. We speak about unemployment on this continent. So if we don't upscale these great businesses that exist in Africa and that are honestly very innovative, then unemployment will continue to be an issue that we face.
Auriez-vous un message particulier pour la diaspora africaine?
I think one of the things I'll ask the diaspora to do is to really come to the continent with a fresh, open mind. I know that we grow up being fed by our parents and our communities and the media, but it is important for you as people, as an African person, or someone who believes that you have African blood or an affinity to the continent, to come approach the continent and see it from your own vision, your own view. And if you feel like there is something that you can contribute to the continent, and it doesn't mean that you have to come back. If there is something that you can contribute, then please go ahead and do that. And please get in touch with the African Union. We're happy to support this.